Hi, and welcome to my presentation of my mind map. I based my mind map off of the definition of internal auditing because throughout the semester we kept referring back to the definition and the key words from that definition. So I'll start off by explaining what it is. So internal auditing is an independent, objective assurance and consulting activity designed to add value and improve an organization's operations. It helps an organization accomplish its objectives by bringing a systematic, disciplined approach to evaluate and improve the effectiveness of risk management, control, and governance process. So the first key word I want to go over is from Unit 2.2, independent. Now what this means is that the internal auditor has its own state of being and it's free from conditions that threaten their objectivity. Which leads me to my next point, objective, from Unit 2.2. And similar to independent, but it's actually the internal auditor's state of mind, and they have an unbiased mental attitude, and their judgment is not subordinated to others. So this means they don't let other people, kind of get into their minds and say what they want to say. They say what their own mental attitude wants to say, and they don't let anyone conflict their thoughts. Moving on to consulting from Unit 1.3, and in consulting, this means that there are usually two or more parties involved, and there's services that add value to a company, which brings me to the next point of the definition of add value. So when you add value, it means that you provide more benefits than cost. Moving on to the next key word, helps an organization. So when you help an organization, you contribute to the organizational success, and it's no longer just a way to reduce external audit cost, a policy and function. Moving on to my next point, in Unit 1.5, it's a disciplined approach and systematic. And these two are similar, and what they do is they imply that standards exist. Now moving on to Unit 3, this is point 3.2, risk management control. So the first thing in risk management control is being able to identify a risk. So to identify a risk, you must analyze the organizational process and determine points in their process that could lead to failure or losses. After you identify the risk, you want to access them. So this brings us to Unit 3.4. So you go over the likelihood and impact. So to rank them, you make a ranking scale, and it doesn't matter the choice of numbers as long as you keep it consistent to all the risks you do. And once you have the likelihood and impact, you multiply it together to get the total risk score, which is used in Unit 5.4 for the long-term audit plan. And for the long-term audit plan, you determine what are the high risks and medium risks, and those are the risks you perform an audit on. For the high risk, you want to audit them every 3 years, and for the medium risk, you want to audit them every 5 years for the medium risk. And to make it easier, you can plot these risks on a risk matrix and a risk map. Now moving on to my next point from risk management control, which is controlling the risk. So there's 4 ways to control a risk. You can either accept them, or there's more than 4 ways, but these are 4 main reasons to control a risk. So the first one is accept, second one is reduce, third one is share, and the fourth one is avoid. So if the likelihood and impact scores are both low, you should accept the risk. When you accept the risk, it means that there's no action to take for the response because it's such a low likelihood and impact, it really doesn't matter. When you reduce a risk, it means you place a control to lessen the potential impact that could be caused by that risk. So you only reduce the risk, or you can reduce the risk. The main reason to reduce the risk is if the impact is low and the likelihood is high. And then when you share a risk, it means that if you do face the impact of the risk, it will be distributed to more than one individual or company. And you share a risk if the likelihood of the risk is low and the impact is high. Now finally, when you avoid a risk, that means that the activity that generates the potential risk is not taken. So you avoid a risk if the impact is high and the likelihood is high as well. Moving on to Unit 4 and 4.1, it turns to internal controls. So the four primary controls are ensure that the information is reliable and has integrity. So an example of that is to perform a risk-based validation or audit your audit trails to make sure you're getting reliable information. Then the next one is safeguard assets. So that's a safe or a vault for cash or business reports. The third one is optimize use of resources. So you can remove unnecessary protection from individual tasks and avoid multitasking. And then the last one is comply with applicable laws and regulations. So you can determine what laws and regulations apply to your company, and to monitor the changes because they're updated constantly. So it's important to stay up to date. Now moving on to the last key term in the definition, which is governance. So what governance is the way the board of directors direct and monitor the organizations towards achievement of objective. And the definition, straight from the book of governance, is the combination of processes and structures implemented by the board to inform, direct, manage, and monitor the activities of the organization toward the achievement of its objectives. And then if you notice here, I wrote integrity. And the reason why I did that is because governance is the way an organization chooses to conduct its affairs. And it's important for them to comply with the legal and regulation rules, provide a benefit to society, and lastly, report truthfully. That concludes the key terms of definition. But just one last thing, I wanted to state that the reason why, if you notice, I've only highlighted the key terms from the definition of internal auditing. The reason why I did that is because I wanted to show how from one definition, all of these branches are coming from the key terms from just one definition. And it just shows how important this definition is, and how from every unit, it always comes back to the definition of internal auditing. This concludes my presentation of my mind map. Thank you for listening.